welcome to Planoly Business School. My name is Cody Foster, and I will be your host for today. We have an incredible lineup of speakers for the Creator 401 Intro to Content Creation session, and I am so excited for all of you to learn from them today. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. There will be a bit of a Q&A session at the end, so if you have questions, feel free to use that question box to submit your question. I do recommend doing that earlier in the session. The Planoly team will be behind the scenes the whole time, just kind of keeping track of those questions and organizing them and getting them ready for the Q&A. So if you wait until the end, you might not have as good of a chance of getting your question answered. So I just strongly recommend go ahead and just submit your questions as you have them as we go throughout the session. And without further ado, I will give you a little bit of an intro to Planoly for any of those who aren't familiar with the platform. Planoly started in 2016 as the first visual Instagram grid planner. Obviously, social media has evolved a lot since then, and so has Planoly. It is now a powerful multi-platform scheduling tool, so you can plan and schedule your content for Instagram, TikTok, Threads, LinkedIn, you name it, they probably have a connection for it. In addition, Planoly added Creator Store last year, which is an all-in-one link in bio tool. So this is a great place to host all of your link in bio links, so links to your websites, to your services, but also links to your digital products. So if you sell something like an ebook or an online course or anything like that, you can also do that in Creator Store without any transaction fees. We will be sending out an email tomorrow with a link to the session recording, as well as a 30% off promo code to try Planoly, and there's also a free 2-week trial. But don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions about Planoly. The team would love to help you out. And without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to introduce you to your panelists. So I'm going to give each of them a little chance to introduce themselves, and we will start with Miss Jessica Post.
I am Jessica Post. I am a creator. I am a coach and a social media strategist, and you can find me on socials at Jessica Post with 2 T's, and I'm super excited to be able to chat with y'all today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and I will pass it over to Connor.
Hi guys, my name is Connor. I'm an attorney, I'm a creative, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a social media mentor. I primarily create lifestyle and wellness creator-focused content. And a lot of my content really comes from just figuring life out in real time. Because, I mean, who isn't right now? You know what I mean? But just balancing the different seasons of life, building a business, learning how to turn those everyday mundane moments into something that's passionate and meaningful. You can find me at everyday.connor, usually on Instagram, where I'm sharing just the behind the scenes of content creation, like I said, wellness, lifestyle, and other creator-focused content. So happy to be here. Thanks, Planoly, for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, we have Xanthe.
Hello, I'm Xanthe. I am a content strategist and educator, but if you take a peek at my socials, you'll realize that that is just a fraction of the type of things that I share and talk about online. I share a mixture of work and play, travel, and that's all on purpose because I believe that your lifestyle is your biggest differentiator. And I support primarily personal brands, founder-forward businesses, and encourage folks to share their whole selves online. So any of their interests, all of those things that feel really kind of random and like they maybe don't connect with your core business or your niche. I believe all of that is really essential to having sustainable success online and building a community who's truly invested in you beyond just what you're selling in the moment. And you can find me at xanthe.appleyard on Instagram as well as TikTok. And I also have 2 podcasts called Love You to the Core and Wanting in Public, where I do share sort of that mix of work and play and teach you how to do the same.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yes, we will dig into all of that. I think especially niching down, people have so many questions about. So we will get into that. But first, I want to just talk about your guys' journey as creators and how you started and how you got to where you are now. So Connor, I'll start with you. If you can kind of walk us through, like, how did you become a creator? How did you know that this is something that you really wanted to do and make this sort of your career? And how did you get to where you are now?
So I've always been creating in like some way, shape, or form. I was that little girl that was on like Xanthe and Tumblr, and to age myself, MySpace. Okay. But I was always making like collages and documenting my life before we ever started calling it content creation, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I had like the family video camera and my own little like video diary, if you will. Watching that now is so cringe, but I'm sure I'll show it to people, you know, at some point. But professionally, I started while I was practicing law. I was balancing being an attorney and a content creator at the same time, which was so chaotic. Because think about it, you're typing, I'm talking about legal briefs and, I'm talking to judges and then I'm typing LOL, 2 seconds later. It's a quick world to jump back and forth. But, that's when I realized like, this is something that I love so much. So for me, the moment when I took this full time, I realized that people were connecting with what I was saying, but also I could totally replace my attorney's salary doing it. So that combination was everything for me. And I just saw how possible it was to build something real from social media. And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it. So for the last 2 years, this is what I've been doing. I've been a full-time creator and I love it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so awesome. I totally forget that you were like a full-time attorney and now you do this. It just like blows my mind. Can you speak a little bit, because I'm sure so many people on this session are people who are just starting out and probably still have 9 to 5s. And I'd love all of you to touch on this as well, but can you speak a little bit to that balance and how you found that when you were first starting out and you were balancing your professional career and trying to do content creation? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that.
So it's interesting. I got married in August of 2020, then dove into content that same year. So I was learning how to be a newlywed, a new attorney, and a creator all at the same time. And it was a lot, but it was a lot of fun. And I realized having structure to your day is key. It's key. So I had a normal 9 to 5, and then my 5 to 9 was literally content. In between emails or during, breaks, I would eat, sleep, and breathe content because I wasn't full time. So you have to make the best with what you have. And so that's what you do. You just organize your day in a way that serves both purposes, your 9 to 5 and your 5 to 9.
Yeah, I think like setting aside time for both is what's really key, and like just putting it on your calendar and saying, okay, from this time to this time, I'm going to edit videos and I'm going to film content, like treat it as if it's like an appointment that you have with yourself. So I love that. Awesome. Xanthe, can you tell us a little bit about your journey as well?
Yes, totally. I was like laughing that you said Zanga. I'm like, oh my gosh, blast from the past. But same Z's. Like I was like totally Tumblr, MySpace, all the like random, any like weird niche blog that you could find like was happening. But I got actually into like the true content creation in the sense of the word that we know it as today, quite like early on in Instagram lore. It was like right when the app came out, and I just happened to be working for a local business, and they didn't have anyone on the team who was like willing to try to use it because it was like a boutique clothing store. And they were like, I guess we're gonna have to like do this and like, design these little graphics. It was like, I even remember, I feel like we were using like PicMonkey. Does anyone remember that? It was like maybe like pre-Canva days. Really so ridiculous. But anyways, we basically were like, just bailing it together, let's say, right? And then someone else in town kind of had heard that I was doing it for the shop. And they were like, oh, maybe you can help me out. And they were a little biscotti bakery. And so I traded biscotti for, content services ultimately. And that was sort of my first taste of using socials. And so then I got kind of just, in the mix, other folks started hearing about it. I was just freelancing it very casually. And fast forward to a couple of years later, I ended up starting my own creative agency and offering a lot of marketing services. And then that grew into branding, grew into design. And I actually kind of let the content side, especially for me and for my own kind of brand, fall by the wayside. And at the same time, I realized that like it was the thing that I was constantly making time for. Like I was constantly trying to kind of fit it into the margins. And it was always the thing that I was like waking up most excited to do, doing first thing in the morning before I would hop into my client calls, before I would connect with the team. And I, kind of for better or for worse, was prioritizing it, even though it really wasn't my full-time thing. And I realized that all the things I was posting were very sort of counter to what a lot of the agencies were being like recommended to share, and just generally what was like the standard at the time, because I was sharing a lot about travel, a lot about our move, a lot about, all these different things that were going on in our life. And I realized that even though it didn't really have to do with our business explicitly, it was growing our business rapidly. And so it was sort of through just realizing that I was following my desire, which kind of felt a little bit like it was maybe, I don't know, it wasn't necessarily like, oh, you hear that feeling a lot where you're like, oh, I'm going to put all this effort to content. I don't really know what the ROI is going to be. And yet you just sort of feel that pull to do it. And so I just found myself continually showing up for it over and over again and realizing like this is really working. And sure enough, our agency clients wanted me to do what I was doing for myself, for them. And so that sort of started to become a service that I was offering again. And eventually I almost like went completely the other way and re-pivoted back into this like marketing kind of service-based structure. And that eventually evolved into education. And still it's the thing that I, love to do the most. It's the thing that I spend majority of my time now doing for my business, as well as teaching other people how to do.
Yeah, that's so awesome. My first ever gig in social media was also a hairstylist in my hometown reached out to me and was like, if you run my Instagram, I will do your hair for free. And I was like, great deal. So I think that's how a lot of people like fall into this, which is so funny. And awesome. And then Jessica, I would also love to hear about your journey a little bit as well.
Yeah, I resonate a ton with what Connor and Xanthe shared about the start of content creation. Very much a Tumblr girl, was like doing my own blogs, all the things throughout. For me, it was like throughout high school. And then as I got into college, I was still creating for myself. I was having fun with just being like a little bit more creative when it comes to content, doing like more graphics, fun things. And then I found myself in my junior year doing internships where I was making Canva graphics and just doing the content. It was actually for like my local city government, which was so random, but it just gave me that taste of like doing content, not just for myself, but also for other people. And that led to me also creating content for like a local smoothie company, just like different things that were in the city center that I worked, where I just started to create a little bit more content there. But I was a COVID grad, so graduated in 2020, where there was going into not a ton of like work that was happening right then. And I just was already documenting my own like health and wellness journey. I was creating fitness content. I was creating a lot of like mindset, self-love content, and just started to continue really doubling down on that as COVID was like very much a thing. And through that, I actually found the online coaching space, and I got into online fitness coaching. And that's kind of where my content creation journey first took me, was into going a little bit more into the service-based side of things. So I was doing content a lot more for generating sales, connecting with clients, and building my personal brand in that way. But I noticed that the thing that I was, other than coaching clients, was most excited about was the content creation side of things. I wanted to focus on the brands. I loved doing that. And I loved just spending my time in my creative energy, which I had known for a long time. So I actually pivoted and started doing content creation for coaches. And now that's something that I'm still doing. So no longer fitness coaching on my own, but doing the content creation side behind the scenes and doing content strategy for coaches. And then I'm also working inside of a business coaching company and doing a lot of teaching content, teaching strategy, the aesthetic side of things, building a brand, and have found just a ton of love in the teaching side of things of it too. But for me, it went from the like personal to the business, back to the personal to the business. And it's been fun to, one, see my niche evolve a ton, because it started as fitness, very much went mindset. Then it was just kind of a little lost for a while. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to teach again. And I would even say for myself, over the past like year and a half, really found that spark in that niche again when it comes to what I post a lot of now, which is more of the social media, business, personal brand side of things. And it's been cool to navigate the different niches and kind of lean into that throughout different phases of my life too.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I want to talk about niches because I think there's a lot of conflicting information out there. And I feel we may even have conflicting opinions right here on this panel, but there's a lot of conflicting information about like, should I niche down? Should I not niche down? Should I post my whole life? Should I pick 1 to 3 content pillars and stick with that? And then once you've chosen a niche, it's like, am I stuck in this? Is this a prison that I've created for myself? And I can't pivot to something else. So Jessica, I'll stay with you. I'd love to learn a little bit more about, that, because you were able to kind of successfully pivot. So walk me through what that looked like for you and the challenges that kind of came with that.
Yeah, I have always been someone that when I create, very much share just a lot of like the documentation side of things. So even when I was posting fitness content, there was a creative element to it. There was me sharing my personal life, moving across the country a few times, my different hobbies, all of the different things that I also do. So it wasn't just the like, here's some health and fitness, here's some mindset. It was a bit more encompassing of me, to where when I made the different transitions, I felt, at least, I think my audience did, that they felt a little bit more natural because it wasn't just like, oh, we're just seeing Jessica in this one light. It was like, here's a few lights of her that build up more of the personal brand that made the pivot feel a little bit easier. However,
Right.
definitely have a minute there where I was posting like lifestyle content, fashion content, like fitness, training. There was just lots of different things happening there where I was even confused on how I wanted to present myself. And as I leaned more into the like, where is my uniqueness? What's the thing that people are coming to me about? What do I get most excited to talk about? Was when it was a lot easier to actually figure that out and dive deeper into that lane while still sharing the different parts of myself.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. It feels like you were kind of the common thread throughout all of that, so it made it work. Xanthe, I know you touched on this a little bit earlier, so I'd be really curious your thoughts as well.
Totally. I think niching is kind of like misunderstood. Like I feel like a lot of folks use it in so many varied ways, but I think truly like why we believe niching is so important is because it shows expertise, right? Like it shows that we've gone kind of all in on some kind of specialization and we have authority on one specific thing. But my belief is really that we can have authority on a lot of different things. Like we can niche in many different sort of avenues or many different lanes, and we can bring all of those things into our personal brand or into our online platform because we still benefit from the niche itself, which ultimately is just the expertise. But we can do it in a lot of ways because I think we often think like, oh, the opposite of a niche is being a generalist, is doing like all of the things. And that's not necessarily the risk. I would say like the risk is doing a lot of things, but not having a very specific way of doing each one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, you could say I am a fitness influencer. My specialty is this one sort of specific style of workout, right? That's your niche within that niche, right? We think of niche as fitness, but fitness itself is actually a massive industry. So what's your niche within that specific space? What's your lane within that specific space? And then same goes for if you wanted to be talking about social media, right? You can have your very specific niche within that. And so I would say like, I definitely do have a niche within the marketing space, but that doesn't necessarily mean that my niche is marketing because I actually have a lot of other things that I talk about and speak to, and that kind of like can almost turn up the dial on those things depending on what's going on in my life, right? So like, for example, I might go traveling for a couple of weeks. All of a sudden I'm talking about working and traveling, for example. And that is something where people who kind of know me and know the way I live my life are interested in the way that I do that. I travel differently than other people. I'm not a travel influencer, but I have sort of a niche or a lane within that space. So that's the way that I like to look at it. And I also do think that like our niche kind of finds us. Like as much as we want to decide and we want to like force ourselves into a box, it's like, it's already happening. Like you just kind of got to sit back and look around and be like, okay, like who am I really? Right. And usually the answer is there.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's such good advice. Connor, I'm curious your thoughts on this as well. I don't know if your niche has evolved over time or if you've kind of been doing this, creator advice and tips since the beginning. So I'd love to know your journey a little bit with niching as well.
So my handle now is Everyday Connor. Okay. But I started out with, I think the handle was all about pretty little things. And you guys, I stopped. I said, but wait a minute, I'm not just all about pretty little things. Like I have depth. There are things, beyond clothes that I care about. But back then, everybody was just pretty much posting about fashion, and so for me, I have evolved so many times. I think, Xanthe, you hit the nail on the head. Your niche is going to evolve just like you will. Okay, whether it's family planning or, you get married or you're moving. And I'm so sorry for the sirens behind me. But it constantly evolves, right? And so I think that when you're finding your niche, it feels like it's this big mountain of a task in the beginning. Like you have to get it right the first time, okay? But for me, it was a blend of lifestyle and fitness and wellness and creator education. And when you're a multi-passionate person, which technically we all are, right? You don't just like one thing. You have a couple favorite foods, so I kind of like to think about life the same way. And so if you're just figuring something out or you're still figuring out, I always say your niche isn't just what you like, it's also your experience. It's your perspective and the way like it overlaps with your audience's needs. So you're allowed to change. You don't need to get it right and perfect on day one. Just post and pay attention and refine. And that's it. Your niche really reveals itself through action, not through overthinking.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think you said, post, pay attention, and refine. And that is such good advice, I think. And I wanted to talk a little bit about strategy and kind of like what was the thing, and maybe there's probably not a magic answer to this question, right? There's probably not a magic thing, but when did you start seeing growth and what made the biggest difference early on when you were trying to like implement these strategies? And Connor, I want to stay with you because I want to work through that, what you just said about like posting and refining. Like, do you feel like that is really a key part of the process? I know there's so much like, again, information out there about like, oh, you should be posting once a day, you should be posting 3 times a day, you should be posting as much as humanly possible. And that feels very unapproachable for a lot of people. So I'd love to get your take on that, and like how does that like posting and refining, how does that like lead to a bigger strategy, and like what were the things that you felt like really unlocked growth for you?
Honestly, and I hate to say this, but it's consistency, but not in the way that people think. When you hear consistency from creators, you think, or I should say, first thing you think is I have to post 19 times in a week. I got to do 17
Yeah.
reels, 2 stories. They need to know what I'm eating. No, that's not what consistency is at all. You define consistency for you, right? I don't post every day, but I touch content every single day. So whether that's editing, refining pillars, repurposing materials, as long as you're touching your content, you're becoming consistent in your craft, because you cannot get better just by observing. You can
Yeah.
only get better by doing and failing and then picking yourself up and going again. Because here's the thing, we're all learning. Like, we're on this panel and, we're all grateful to be here, but we are forever learners of this craft and of this industry. And so I think as long as you're staying consistent in your desire to learn and grow and become better, you're already winning. But that's just my opinion.
No, I love that so much. I think that advice could be applied to so many things outside of just content. I love that so much. Jessica, I feel like you were really resonating with that, so I'll go to you next.
I definitely was. I think that what you were sharing, Connor, on the just like you have to take action to really be able to figure out what it even is that like is working for you, that is working for your audience. That's definitely the most important piece. Something else that really, really served me when it came to like seeing what really moved the needle and what was going to work when it comes to creating just more connection with my audience was the connection piece, and really leaning into connecting to my audience, feeling like I could like talk with them, feeling like they could talk with me, like there was just that mutual connection there, and really actually looking at what was landing for them, what were the things that they wanted to hear, how can I be talking to the things that they're experiencing and sharing my perspective, how can I be a little bit more vulnerable with what maybe I'm going through that they're navigating right now, that can just allow for this to feel like a safe space, a welcoming space, a space where they can learn, and how can they see that I'm someone that just wants to continue to like learn and evolve too. So a really big aspect for me was just like really staying in that connection mindset and knowing that if I'm spending time actually talking to them, like being an active participant in my audience, that things were kind of just always consistently growing from there. And the last thing that really, really served me when it came to like moving the needle for growth was not focusing on perfection or those things that come up of just like, okay, this needs to be the exact thing, the perfect thing. Because something that I say over and over again is like, what the heck really even is perfect content? And if we're just waiting for the thing to be perfect, we're waiting for the thing to be exactly what the idea needs to be, we're just delaying the time that we could be connecting, we could be sharing, and we could be impacting one person that day. So moving past those, this needs to be perfect, this needs to be whatever you may think it is, and letting yourself move into action, even if it feels messy, even if it feels uncomfortable, was the thing that really allowed me to move the needle the most.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. So many people, myself included, guilty of this, like just get so caught up in like, oh, it's not good enough yet, I can't post it. And I think we had another panelist on a different session, like that piece of advice, and this is Connor, a lot of what you were saying as well, is like, you have to start before you're ready. You have to just start posting, start doing the thing before you feel, because you're never going to feel 100% ready. And I think that's such good advice. And Xanthe, I'll throw it over to you last but not least.
Yeah, I love everything that both of you have said, Connor and Jessica. Like, I think the presence piece and the participation piece, like those are words that I feel like I use all the time. Just with this idea of like, we think that consistency is so output driven, but really it's actually just like, are you there in your community? Like, are you actually engaging? And I don't mean like, doing your engagement hours or whatever, but like, are you actually like listening to people, having conversations with people, and like engaging with your own content, like you said, with your own strategy? And I just like, yeah, just reiterate that 100%. I would say the biggest catalyst for growth for me truly has been generosity. Like just being known for giving away so much for free, like giving away so much value. And I've said this from very, very early days, but like your platform is a resource, not a sales page. And I've thought about it through that lens since absolutely like day one, of just this thought that like people are here to receive something from me. And if I can kind of keep that relationship at the forefront, if I can always look at it as like, these are people who are ultimately friends first, like there are people who I genuinely want to like connect with, meet. And what would that look like for me to show up and actually be in support of them? Like if everything I create is actually truly in support of the people who are there on the other side of the screen. And just having that be my driving force has created such an echo of folks sharing my work, folks sharing my posts. The engagement is always so enthusiastic, because I think that so much of what I give is almost unexpected at times. Like people are almost like, whoa, like this is like really valuable, And I do think that there can be, and even like I felt this way as well, especially moving more towards education and sharing products that people can buy, to have this feeling of like, oh, is there such thing as giving too much? And I've really just like fought to truly like believe and show that like there is no such thing. And I think that has had such a massive, massive impact on my community. And of course, yeah, all of the things that everyone else shared too, just with learning and evolving and listening and shifting as you see what people need, but more than anything, hearing what they need and then making it and giving it to them and then sort of seeing what happens next.
Yeah, no, I love that so much. I saw a piece of advice recently that was like, too many people create me-centered content versus centering the content around their audience and what their audience, it's like anyone can make an aesthetic day in the life vlog, but like, are you providing value to your audience and how are you doing that? So I love like your platform as a resource, not a sales page. That's so, so good. I want to get into the actual content creation side. I think so many people have questions, and I personally am just so interested in this. Like everyone has a little bit of a different process that they go through. So Connor, I'll start with you, but can you walk us through like your content creation process? What does it look like from ideation basically to the second that you hit publish? What does that look like for you?
You guys are gonna laugh, but I am very type A, eldest daughter CEO. Give me the stickies, the highlighters, the color coding, the Post-its. Like that's my favorite. So with that being said, I'm very process and systems based. I'm not someone who can just sit down and just start like creating content. I don't even think my brain would know where to begin. So I really don't. But so for me, like when I first started, there really wasn't like a tool or a system that worked with my brain to help me figure out, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. That's just how I work. So I created my own content planner called the Post Content Planner. POST is an acronym. It stands for plan, outline, shoot, and tweet. So when I'm planning my content, and let me back up, each day I dedicate to one section of post. So I'm either going to plan on Monday or I'm going to shoot on Friday. So when I'm planning my content, I'm thinking about like, what am I going to talk about and why? More importantly, why does this matter to my audience? You know what I mean? When you're outlining your content, I'm thinking through hooks, captions, structure, value. What value can I provide to them? And again, why does this matter? I always take it back to why does this matter? What impact and effect is this going to have on my audience? Can they see themselves in this post? And if they can't see themselves in this post, that's in like an I-centric post. It's not for everybody. It's just like a selfish me post, okay? When you're shooting your content, you're capturing everything. I could also like design graphics on that day. And then of course, tweak. That's where you're editing and you're optimizing, you're refining everything before you post. And so it becomes less about, like, what do I post today? And more about executing a plan that has already been created. And so whenever creators reach out and say, like, how do you come up with these ideas and this, that, and the other? It's usually not that they're stuck and they're not creative. It's just a matter of building a system that works for you. And if you do that, you'll find creating content is not only easier, but it is so enjoyable. It's so enjoyable. And I'm a tactile person. So I like paper. That sounds weird, but I like to write. I like paper. So sometimes I'll just take my content planner to the beach and I'll just start planning out my content. No distractions, no notifications. It's just me, the waves, and my planner. And that's how I like to plan.
Oh, I love that so much. No, Connor's planner is incredible, by the way, and I did see that she has a little promo code up on her Instagram story right now. So go check that out. Awesome. Xanthe, how about we'll go over to you next?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I want the planner. I'm literally like writing that down. Love it. So for me, really similar. Sorry if my dogs are barking, if you can hear that. They're getting extracted from the room. Really similarly, I am an organized, like I need to have the organization. I need to have the structure. I need to have the systems. I think that, I honestly do think that there is a little bit of like an over emphasis or maybe just like again, misconception that everyone is like creating so spontaneously. Like all these things are just like coming out of our brains in the middle of the day and we're like going to shoot it and post it right then and there. Sometimes that happens, rare. And rarely is that the actual like content that I'm the most proud of. So I really do believe in like having a system and having a structure. Doesn't have to be my structure, but a structure that works for you. So just totally echoing what you said, Connor. For me, a big part of the process is having my content themes. And so content themes from like by my definition are these kind of core conversations that I'm leading. And I'm always keeping a bank of ideas that I can categorize into those themes. So one of my content themes, just as an example, is connection economy. And so that's where I would speak a lot about growth. I would talk about sales. I would talk about community engagement, those types of things. So anytime I come up with an idea, and I might just, the idea might just drop in while I'm like at the grocery store or whatever, I would then quickly put it into just write it down somewhere and know which theme it lives in. And so that way, when I actually go to sit down and have my planning session, and this is when I usually just sit down and actually make a decision about what am I sharing. I only plan things like about a week in advance. I like to do it pretty close to the posting time because I find that I get very bored. Like I just think that by the time I arrive to something, if I've planned it a month out, I'm like, who is that person? I don't care about this anymore, And so I maybe will stash that back in my bank later, but I'm always sort of creating on the week ahead. And just basically I'm making those decisions about what I'm sharing based on what I'm actually actively hearing that people need. So I have a weekly AMA that I do in my stories. I also have, private communities with my own clients that I support. And I'm actually like keeping almost like a mental tab of like, what are the questions that are coming up a lot? And what are the things that I'm seeing people potentially struggling with, or even just experiencing, even if it's not necessarily a struggle, but just maybe a season of life that I'm seeing some patterning around. When I sit down and do my planning session, I actually decide what to post based on that information. And then similarly to what Connor said, every day I touch my content in some way. And I refer to that as my marketing shift. And it's just like a daily dedication to content. And I do try to task batch. So I'll sit down maybe and I'll do my planning on one day, then I'll write my captions on another day, do some design and editing on another day. And I'm really just trying to sort of chip away at it so that whenever I arrive to the week, so like let's say right now it's a Monday, by next Monday, I'd like to arrive with all my posts for next week ready to go. And then I'm just sort of publishing day by day, planning them out in Planoly to make sure they look cute on the feed, of course. And so usually, I'm just sort of arriving to the day of with some prepped content, and then I just sort of start that cycle all over again.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I love the marketing shift idea too. And Jessica, I know I've seen on your Instagram stories, you talk about batching content and sitting down and building that out too. So would love to know about your process.
Yeah. Mine are quite similar to even what Connor and Xanthe both shared. I'm someone that also very much relies on structure, especially with creating for more than just me. Being able to have structure helps. And I found that even for me and so many people I talk to, when you lean into the structure, you create more room for creativity. You don't feel like you're just having to like grab it out of thin air every single day. There's actually space for it to be able to grow. So what I've always done is similar to Connor. I actually split mine up in basically those 4 exact same ways, where I have one day where I will go in and first I'm looking at like conversations I've had with clients, things that I'm just seeing questions on, what's all happening just within my space that I maybe want to add to the conversation on, I've experienced and I want to be able to share how I navigated it, or just some overall questions. So that way my content's still feeling like it's connecting to my audience. Something else I really prioritize when I'm doing my content planning days is I do this before I go on social media, before I talk to my clients. I do it before anything else, because I always use a little analogy that all of our ideas are like little seeds, and when you get that idea, you have to give it room to grow. You have to give it the water. You have to give it all the things. And when you go on social media, you start talking to people, you start scrolling on TikTok, whatever it is, you're just covering that seed with a ton of debris and not giving it any room to grow. So making sure that you let yourself create when you're just in your energy has been the biggest thing for me to feel the most authentic in my content and just feel like I'm creating from a place of being really excited about it and having it be something that I know my audience is really going to like too. So that's what my planning day always looks like. And during that time, I'm thinking through what topics I want to be talking on. And I also have, similar to what Xanthe was saying, different content purposes that I'm looking at to make sure that I'm kind of hitting all my different targets throughout the week and not just doing a ton of like savable content or not just doing a ton of connection-based content. I want to be able to connect, share perspectives, shift perspectives, give a ton of value. And if there's anything sales related happening, something leaning a little bit more there. So I like to divide my ideas up into that. And then I have another day where I'll go in and do all of my actual creation of it. And that's a day that for me, it's typically Fridays. It's a fun day. It's fun to go create. And then I'll have my day to just do any little edits before Sunday. So that way going into the week, same as Xanthe, everything's already ready to post. I'm also someone that if I plan a month at a time, we get to week 4 and I'm like, what is that? Like, I don't want to post that. So I do kind of 1 to 2 weeks at a time, depending on if there's anything happening, like marketing wise or anything that I'm creating with someone else. But if it's just me and my content, we're doing 7 days at a time. And I've just found that's what keeps me the most excited. And unlike, I think both of y'all, I always leave one day open just for the creative sparks that show up and whatever is going to come to mind, my little type B day of the day. And usually I find that's kind of towards the end of the week where there's just something that's probably happened in my life that I want to share about. It's top of mind. I'm like in the car driving somewhere and I'm like, I need to talk about that right now. So I leave about 1-ish day open for whatever creative energy just comes through that day and make sure that I actually have enough time on my calendar to do that. And when I do that, I find I stay excited throughout the week. I stay in that creative energy, and those are often the ones that have the most connection. They're not always the ones that I'm like, yes, I want people to save that, but they're the ones that get a lot of comments or people messaging me about, and I really enjoy that too. So mostly structure with like a teeny bit of type B in there.
No, I love that. I love leaving room. I think it's great also like trends pop up and things that you may want to like slot in there. So I love leaving space for that. Okay, I want to talk about, this is a big hot topic, I think, starting to put yourself in front of brands, right? You're getting to a point where you've built an audience, you feel like your engagement is good. Now you want to start putting yourself in brands. What do you recommend that someone who's maybe never done this before, what would you recommend them have in their portfolio? And on the flip side, maybe they haven't worked with a brand yet. So how would you even go about building a portfolio to send to brands? So I'll start with you, Xanthe.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the way that I view content really is ultimately like it is our tool for opportunity. And so if there's a specific opportunity, a specific brand, a specific relationship, even just like a specific style of content or experience that we really want to be a part of, we get to create it first. Like we get to actually create that for our own feeds, for our own selves. And then that ultimately becomes a portfolio. So if you want to be doing, let's say, speaking engagements like this, is there content of you speaking on a specific topic on your page? Like that's a really obvious example, but then it goes all the way down to this idea of integrating product and that kind of thing. But I would also look at it like if you are creating and if you can kind of like land in the value that you want to create for your community and land in how you want to be showing up for them, that should always be the priority. And then think about, okay, how would a brand naturally integrate into this? What kind of conversations or plots or I like to think of it as plots because I do feel like in some ways we kind of do sort of, I think Connor, you spoke to this, right? Where we sort of have these seasons, right? Where they may be like these specific lifestyle things like a move or things like that, where there are these almost like natural kind of inflection points within our content where we could invite a brand in. You know, we see a lot of folks, you know, working with movers or working with, you know, these kind of specific for these very specific kind of niche moments. And so always sort of checking in with like, okay, what's coming down the pipe in my life? What's actually happening that I would already want to share with my community? And then how could a brand potentially integrate with that? And that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be reaching out to those brands at this time. Maybe you're not ready to do that. Maybe, you know, for whatever reason, maybe you just don't have the capacity to be partnering, whatever that looks like. But either way, create the content as if you could, and create the content as if a brand could integrate with it, or create the content with the idea that one day I might actually use this to pitch a brand or share it with a brand. And I really want to feel proud of that. So I see this a lot with travel content, for example, right? Like go to the hotel, film the hotel tour. It doesn't matter if they actually invited you to be there or not, right? Really sort of creating like you already have the partnership is going to be huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that so much. Connor, I see you nodding along a lot. I'll go to you next.
You know, I think Xanthe hit the nail on the head again. I mean, there's something to be said about, it's kind of like creating before you feel ready, right? So you're filming that whole hotel lobby as though you've been paid to be there. And that's, but really, that's the kind of energy you want to bring to it. I'll never forget, like, I wanted to do something with Sephora, and I filmed this whole, like, you know, shop with me video, and I didn't know that the Sephora sale was coming up. I had no idea. But it just so happened that everything fell on the same day. And so then they reached out and said, hey, can we have this? Well, not for free, but like, of course you can. Of course you can. But really, you hit the nail on the head. And I think this is kind of where a lot of people feel stuck if you haven't landed a brand deal yet. You don't need to land a brand deal to start. You don't. You just need to create, okay? And you can create content literally about anything. I have a Bink water bottle that technically Planoly influenced me on. But Planoly influenced me. And so then it's about creating stories around a water bottle. And it sounds insane. Could you really come up with a whole story about a water bottle? Yeah, you really can. It's a glass water bottle. There's no harsh like toxins and plastics and chemicals. And you think about all that that does to your body. You can literally create and craft a story around that. So I always tell people, create content around the products that you're already using, not just, you know, the aesthetics, but tell us a story, make me care, invite me in. And we do that through emotions. And then that can help you further focus on how you're going to communicate the value of that product. And so sometimes creators land gifted collabs before they land paid collabs. An important thing to note is, like for your media kit, you don't have to put the distinction that it was a gifted collab. You know what I mean? There's not like a little asterisk that says gifted. No, you created the content and then you literally just add it to your portfolio. So even if your portfolio is self-initiated, it should answer for brands. Can this creator sell or present the value in a way that feels natural? And if you can do that, that is key.
Yeah, I think that's such great advice. Jessica, I'll toss it to you, but I'm also curious kind of to piggyback on what Connor was saying. Like, are you guys tagging these brands in these stories and trying to get on their radar organically before you have these paid partnerships as well?
Yeah, absolutely. What they both shared already on like how to even just start creating to get noticed by brands or invite brands in is absolutely everything I would share too. I think the starting before you're ready, acting like it's like not honestly kind of the fake is who you make it, because if you're going to show up how you want to be creating, you're going to be bringing the energy that you know you already want to. It's going to also feel a lot better when you do get that brand deal and you get to continue to show up how you want. So when you're already creating and feeling super authentic, sharing the things that you want to, creating the ways that you want to, once you get that partnership, it feels so much more natural and it doesn't feel like, okay, maybe I need to follow a script a certain way or show up a way that maybe doesn't feel like me because I was trying to get this thing. More showing up how I want to, using the things that I love, using the products I love, doing the experiences that I already love. And that's going to attract the right brands that you want to bring into your community and also even suggest to your people too. But even when it came to like initially creating for gifted partnerships, then moving into paid ones, absolutely tagging them and letting them see the content that you're making. I've had that lead to having them like whitelist videos in the past and things along those lines, where even talking about like skincare that was working really well for me through a season of really struggling with my skin, being able to have that turn into something that the brand's able to use, feels super authentic, and you're able to have some compensation for that. So being able to start doing that early on absolutely helps. Even them seeing you, being able to understand how you would create, and then also even if you'd be able to fit into one of their collabs or partnerships later down the line too.
Yeah. Can you talk about the difference for anyone who isn't aware of like the difference between whitelisting and like a traditional paid collaboration?
Yeah. So with whitelisting a video, it's for me, the one that I've done, I've only just done one that was a whitelisted video, but it was something that I had already created. It's a skincare video on TikTok, and the brand reached out to see if they would be able to use it for their own ad, but it looks like the ad is from your personal page. So it feels a little bit more connection based to the audience, and that's a paid ad from your page from the brand, and you're able to be compensated for it too. And that differs from a paid collab that they're reaching out to you. Not usually, you always have the ability to kind of create it after that. Usually there's what's the word I'm looking for? There's
Your contract
on how they want to have you show up, your contract, all of those things. And the difference is typically like how long it runs, what the contract looks like, and then it's something that was already created versus something that you're creating for them.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a great key distinction. Like versus they didn't reach out, send you a brief and do a whole campaign with you. It was like, hey, maybe they saw a video or they just reached out to you and were like, can you create a video for us to run as an ad? You don't have to post it on your page. I know we've done that at Planoly. So I think that is something that a lot of people are totally unaware of. So I'm glad that we touched on that. Okay, we have 2 questions left, but I'm gonna kind of combine them together because I think they're very related and I want to leave time for the Q&A. So I want to talk about basically like you have a portfolio now, you've created this content, we want to reach out to brands. What does that look like? Like, what does brand outreach look like for you guys? And like, so many people I'm sure are gonna have so many questions about like, how do you structure your rates? Like, how did you know what you were going to charge and what do you look for in a contract too? I think that's a big thing that until people get into it, they get sent their first contract and they're like, oh my God, I have no idea. Like, does this benefit me? Is this good for me? I'm going to run it through ChatGPT and ask because that's my lawyer, like, so what do you guys look for in contracts? Like, what is kind of just like that brand partnership process look like for you? And I'll start with you, Jessica.
Yeah. So when it comes to the brand partnership side of things, for me, when I decided that I wanted to go deeper into the content creation side of things and start to even like monetize my brand, I had like some really clear goals on the types of brands that I wanted to work with and ones that I had used, I had trusted, things along those lines that I wanted to really suggest to my audience that really aligned with the content that I was creating. So like when Planoly reached out for the first time, I was super excited because it was something that I used, something that I trusted and that I wanted to suggest to my audience to use. So it was something that felt really aligned for me. And that's how I've always gone about like choosing my partnerships and saying yes to ones or even reaching out to brands too. And when looking at, for me, when brands have reached out, looking at contracts, things that I'm looking at are like exclusivity, perpetuity, like how long they have access to it, if they're able to continue to use that content forever, if you're able to use or create content for other brands during a certain amount of time. And I'm also looking at the rates of it. For rates, I know for me, when I first started creating, I was on ChatGPT, like looking on Reddit threads, on TikTok, like, okay, what the heck do I do? And I know it can be a really scary thing that when I first started out, I was looking at like, okay, what type of content is this? Is this more of like UGC? Am I creating something that the brand is going to be using? Is it something that's like they're going to be running as an ad, or it's just coming from my page, or be collabing it? There's a lot of different things to look at. And with choosing rates, what I initially started off with was choosing kind of where I felt comfortable and like knew that I had room to grow as I started to create more just branded content and was able to add more and more to my portfolio as well. And even when I first started doing some of my paid collaborations, I had companies giving a suggestion of what rates were at and was looking at, honestly, the first time looking at what that was versus what girls on TikTok were saying was at a good place and choosing that way. But for me, it was like, okay, do I have room to grow here? Does this feel like it's fair? And is it something that's like I feel really excited about and that it would like match the quality of the work that I'm creating? And is it something that like I can grow from too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes a ton of sense. Xanthe, I'll toss it to you next.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, also co-signing everything that Jessica said. But I feel like my kind of experience with brand partnerships is very much based around this idea of like my community, like the trust of my community is such an asset. And I really take that quite seriously. And so through that lens, I'm always looking at brands that really would be like an authentic representation of things that I'm already sharing, things that I'm already talking about, as well as relationships that I can actually build with them. Because I do know that given the sort of like relationship that I do have with my community, the trust isn't always necessarily going to be built just from like one post, kind of, and if I'm speaking about something organically, or if I can kind of create these relationships with folks where maybe we work together in multiple different ways, that's always going to be really exciting to me. And so definitely when I'm thinking about like the kind of relationships and partnerships that I want to call in, it's always ones where there's like an opportunity to work together in like multiple dynamic ways. Like maybe I'm sharing something on the feed, maybe we're also going to do an event together. There's some opportunity for crossover. And so a lot of the brands that I have had the pleasure of working with have kind of followed that that dynamic where we've collaborated in a lot of different ways. And what's been interesting about that is maybe the first time we collaborated, it was a gifting opportunity, right? Or maybe it was just like a DM exchange that just kind of like went to a next step. Maybe I went to an event live and met them there. Like building the relationship very sort of slowly and intentionally has been a huge part of my process. And because of that, what I've actually noticed is that like I'll reach out to brands over and over again who I've worked with in different capacities. And, you know, for example, doing an in-person event, I'll reach out to a brand that maybe I've done some content for, and I'll have them send gifts for the gift bags. And so there's these relationships that kind of take all these new and evolving shapes just because we're kind of continuing to grow together. And so that's always been something that's really interesting to me, and just like that I continue to do. And I think, Jessica, I feel like you were touching on this a little bit, but I do feel like there is almost like a layer of like putting it out into the universe, like actually saying like, these are the types of brands that I really want to work with. These are the types of opportunities that feel really good to me. And whether that's intentional or unintentional, I think we do sort of start gravitating towards creating content that aligns more with that type of partnership. I think we start to prioritize relationships that bring us closer to partners like that. And so a lot of times the opportunities actually have been inbound, but it does feel like in some way, I know I've been like orienting myself towards receiving that opportunity, whether that is like creating content that's going to call those people in, whether that is, you know, putting myself in rooms where I know I'm going to get noticed by those types of people. But anytime that I have been doing outreach, I do really try to reach out to folks where there is some existing relationship already, whether that's because maybe I've worked with a brand that I know they've worked with before, right? So maybe there's some kind of like crossover opportunity to say, you know, I recently worked with blank, and I see that you two are very aligned in blank. And so kind of just, again, sort of creating this almost networking energy through the way that those relationships are being built. So just adding that into the mix more so on the kind of the pitching and the reaching out and how I find people to reach out to. It's usually based on relationships I already have, inter-brand relationships that I notice, and also brands who have relationships to creators who are also my friends and peers, because that's a really great way to kind of get in front of new faces too.
Yeah, that's so great. That was so much helpful information in that. Connor, our resident attorney, we'll toss it over to you. I feel like you will definitely have some things to add here.
I have to co-sign everything that Jessica and Xanthe said, like to a T. So I won't touch on the relationship side. I'll just talk about contracts then. I love contracts. I do. I'm sorry. I love them. You guys, when you get contracts from a brand, take your time. Take your time with them. Give yourself 24 to 48 hours to just sit down. First, get excited because, right, you have a contract. So we have to celebrate that. That's, you know, just don't skip over that part. But when you sit down, like get a pen and circle and highlight anything you don't understand. Circle and highlight things that you have questions about. And, you know, a lot of times creators say, yeah, but I don't want them to think I don't understand, or I don't want them to think I'm being difficult. You're not being difficult. You're a business owner. This is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to collaborate, ask questions, and make sure that both parties are on that same page. Jessica, you hit the nail on the head with the terms of the contract that you should be looking out for, but I'm going to add payment terms to that list as well. You as a creator, you need to know when you're being paid, how you're being paid, and, you know, are taxes being taken out beforehand? Because typically they're not. So as an independent contractor, you need to set aside those taxes ahead of time. In terms of payment terms, I always encourage creators to add a clause that says, you know, if this brand doesn't pay you on time, this is what it looks like for you. And so you start to tack on a percentage of your fee for, you know, every 30 days, or, you know, hopefully it doesn't get to that. But that's the idea. That way you protect yourself as a creator, but you also let the brand know, like, hey, you know, I am a business here too. Most brands will provide the contract to you, but you can always reach out to a friend or, you know, a lawyer and ask them, hey, is there anything in here that seems a little off? Perpetuity. Jess, you hit the nail on the head. Don't ever agree to anything in perpetuity. That means like forever and ever, amen. No. There has to be a deadline, a set time where, you know, this stuff has to end, because you don't know as a creator how big you're going to get, right? So if you sign a contract, you know, and let's say the terms are for a year. Okay, but if you've already, let's say a video goes viral and now you're on stage with Bieber at Coachella, okay? Your worth just went up a lot. Your stock just went up, right? So they got you back here at that 1 year rate. But now let's say you're making 10 times that. You would still be locked in over here. And so just to avoid that, I always tell creators, keep it open. don't sign up for anything longer than like six months or 3 months, but that's just me.
Yeah, that's such good advice. Also, I'm glad that we're all still obsessed with Biebercella. But such good advice, I think, to think about the future and say, like, you don't know where you'll be in a year, and you don't necessarily want to be tied to this brand in a year. Awesome. Okay, we have a couple of audience questions, so I'm going to try to get to them as fast as we can, or get through as many of them as we can. This first person wants to know, how do you integrate different types of niches or topics in your content? So we touched on this a little earlier, but this person in particular has their main niche down, which is beverages, but they want to start incorporating some of their other interests, and they're just like not sure how to do that seamlessly. And I think a lot of people run into this, right? Like, you've built a niche around wellness, and then maybe you want to start branching out and doing fashion. It's like, okay, how do I kind of start doing that without alienating my like core audience? So is there any one of you that this speaks to that particularly would love to take this question? Xanthe, I feel like you're nodding. I'll throw this to you.
Yeah, I'm in. Yes. Okay. So this is something that I chat with people all the time, which is removing this idea that like content ideas come from this niche minded approach, right? Where it's like, okay, I do beverages. Here are all the things I could say about beverages, or here are all the things I could create about beverages. And instead create a strategy that's based on perspectives. So create a few core perspectives that you hold as a human being. And those perspectives would be ultimately your content themes. And now think about how the new things you want to share fit within those perspectives. So a certain drink recipe could fit under one of your perspectives, but another drink recipe could fit under another perspective. So now we're no longer stuck in this, like, I post about drinks, or I post about fashion, or I post about this. It's like everything I post supports these perspectives, and I can share whatever I want as long as it's supporting those perspectives.
Yeah, I love that so much. Similar question is, what is your advice for creating content that actually converts followers? I felt a little stunted in my growth lately and would love some advice. Have we not all been there? Jessica, do you have anything to add for this one?
Definitely. I find that for me, when I am in those moments where like people are coming to my page, it's growing, things are happening, it's when I'm providing the most value and I'm giving real solutions. Like, you can tell that you're going to learn something from me, that I'm going to support you in some way, that there's something that's adding value to your life. And that value doesn't always have to just be like information. Value can be entertainment, it can be connection, it can be something emotional related, it can be something mindset related, it can be something that just adds value in some ways. And when you really, really lean into that, I find that that's always when it supports growth the most. And the other part of that too is the specificity that can come from those pieces of content. So letting yourself get specific on what you're sharing, who you're talking to, the perspectives that you're sharing, and instead of making blanket statements, share things that are specific and can give specific values, specific perspective shifts, specific really anything, so that someone knows that that piece of content is for them and that they want to come to your page and continue to evolve and learn and grow or laugh with you.
Mm-hmm. Great answer. We got a follow-up on contracts, which Connor, I'll throw this one to you. I think this is a really good question. Should you negotiate extended usage with the brand after the initial usage period? So for example, if you gave them 30 days or 3 months, would you then negotiate to extend it for another 3 months if the brand wanted to?
If the brand wanted to, yes, absolutely, yes, because that means your content's performing. They're seeing an ROI come already, and that's pretty cool. So kudos to you. Like, that's really exciting. You can absolutely renegotiate, but now that you see it's performing better, increase your rate, because now you have proof of concept, and that is valuable.
Yeah, that's such a good advice, because let me tell you, from the brand side, if we're reaching out to extend, that means that it's doing well. So that's really good advice. Awesome. This is a question for Jessica, but anyone else who wants to answer as well. This person loved your kind of seedling example and metaphor, and was wondering, Instagram is already so distracting, so how do you, like, what is your process? Like, once you have that idea and you said you don't want to like get distracted by anything else, like, what is your process for, taking that idea and building it into something else?
Yeah. Something that has really helped me just with distraction on Instagram is using the brick. I brick my phone during like most of my workday, so I'm not going on Instagram. And if I'm doing something like content audit related for a client, I look on my computer, because scrolling on Instagram on your computer is kind of weird. But
Yeah.
when I get those ideas and I'm not in that time to create, I'll actually use the voice memo app on my phone, and I will voice it to myself, like what I want that thing to be, the energy behind it. And I find that when I can listen to myself re-say it, when I go to my content planning time, like later that week, that the idea comes back better. So I use my voice memos a ton, and I find that helps me just speak it out, explain it to myself. And then when I go into plan, everything is a lot easier then.
Yeah. Oh, that's so smart. I love the voice memo idea because you can just like get it all out. You don't have to sit down and type anything. That's so smart.
Yeah.
Okay. I am very curious. I know, Connor, I believe you have a course. Does anyone else have a course that they are selling? Okay. Okay. So Connor and Xanthe, this is a really good question. Would love both of your takes on this. I feel like people are starting to feel like that course space is feeling very saturated, right? Everyone is selling a course these days. So, do you feel like that kind of is over? The days of selling courses is over? I have a feeling the answer is no. So, in that case, how do you stand out in such like a saturated market and sell your course? So, I'll go to you first, Connor.
It's all about perspective. It's all about perspective. You can have multiple creators, who are experts in an area, and they can talk about the same thing, but it's about how they talk about it, who you resonate with. I'm somebody that talks with my hands. Like, I wish I wouldn't, but I can't help it. So I'm an engaging talker. I like to look at you. I want you to feel like you're right here sitting next to me. That's the way that I approach information. But somebody else may not like, the exorbitant personality and all the movement, and they may want something else. And that's totally fine. A lot of courses these days, I don't think that courses are going anywhere because we are human. We're forever looking to learn. And so it's just about finding that medium in which how you're going to do it. I don't know, Xanthe, if you would agree with that. But yeah, so I'm going to pass it to you. But no, courses aren't going anywhere. No.
I totally agree. I think that what you said about like the personality is what folks kind of buy into, is like we can learn, like, is it true that you can buy a lot of social media courses? Yes. Does that mean that the market is quote unquote saturated? Maybe. Do you have to look at saturation as a negative thing? Maybe. But I think that ultimately when someone is buying into you, like when I think about like, okay, I want to have an invested community. That's the language that I always use. And when I think about invested community, I'm thinking about folks who are, no matter sort of what I pivot into, whatever I shift, wherever I evolve, they are in like on the ride with me, basically, right? And so what that might look like in a moment might be a course. And that means that if folks want to learn from me, they're excited about what I'm sharing, they want to experience my impact, a course is going to be the avenue that they're going to do that because they're bought into what I have to say, what I have to share with them, how I've supported them, right? But if I was to decide, actually, I'm going to do like a physical product, again, they already trust me. They're already bought into me. They're probably going to dive in on that too, right? So it's less about the medium and more about the person, but also recognizing that like we have the freedom to create in whatever medium we want. So if everybody's doing courses, that doesn't mean you have to do courses. It also doesn't mean that you shouldn't do courses. It just means think about what your community actually wants. Think about what medium is going to work best for the way that you share. Connor, as an example, I mean, you are an incredible speaker. This whole time I'm like sat for everything that you're saying. And so I would love to watch you on video. I would feel really excited about that. Personally, I actually don't really do many video. I do mostly audio because I know that a lot of folks that are listening to my work are kind of like on the go. I prefer to listen to things on the go. So I've kind of created a way of showing up in that education space, but I've done it in a way that is a little bit different that I know resonates with my audience. And so there's ways that we can infuse our own personality, our own experience into things and almost like play up the skills we have to really create a unique course experience, even if like as a blanket statement, like, yes, there are a lot of courses out there, but is it your course? Is it you? No, right?
Yeah, no, I love that. I think everyone has a unique perspective to share. So just because someone else has done it first doesn't mean that you can't do it your own way. We actually hosted the session right before this was our Econ 301 session, and we talked to 3 digital product experts. So if you're interested in that, I highly recommend going and checking out that recording. It's on the Planel YouTube channel. But one of the speakers talked about kind of testing like whether your audience wants something. So setting up a wait list for something is a really, really good way to see like, okay, if nobody joins this waitlist, then you can quietly kill off that idea, right? Like it turns out nobody wanted it. We can go back to the drawing board and we can come up with something new that maybe people do want. But if you get, 20, 30, 40, 100 people on a waitlist, then that shows that people actually do want this thing and you should go ahead and build it out. So I think that could be a great way of testing that as well. Okay, I know we are over time. I'm going to wrap this up with one last question that I would love all of you to answer because I think that it's really cute and sweet and I would love to hear your answers to this. So someone asked, question for all panelists, when do you feel like you had your I made it moment with your content journey? And I'll start with you, Jessica.
That is such a cute question. I'm like, I wonder what it is. For me, I think when I had that, like, okay, I made it part of my content journey, I don't think was necessarily like working with a brand milestone, like hitting a certain follower milestone. I think for me, the like I made it was when I myself started to feel the most like excited and confident in what I was doing. And like what I was putting out there was like truly a reflection of me and also how I want to be impacting people. I think that the like I made it moments come from when you get the messages of people being like, wow, I really needed to hear that today. Like, thanks so much for sharing that part of you. Or the like, I never have heard someone speak that way. Like, I'm so glad that I had that. And where you really start to see that people are connecting with you and resonating and that you're really making an impact on people. I am someone that loves fulfillment and leaning into just feeling fulfilled and letting other people see that that's possible for them. So being the one to inspire someone to maybe also say the things that they feel a little bit nervous to say, put themselves out there to start creating and seeing that you are a catalyst in someone else's journey because of you feeling confident and capable within yourself was those little micro moments that start to happen have definitely been and built up to that more of that like I made it moment.
Oh, I love that so much. That's so good. Xanthe, I'll go to you next.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I completely agree. I think like I made it is like a feeling, and I think it happens in so many micro moments. And like as soon as you ask that question, I feel like so many little things like kind of flash before my eyes. I think it is sometimes moments like, you know, being in a space like this, like a brand that is obviously widely recognized, feeling like your voice is respected in the space. Like those moments are incredible. And I also think that it's such small things where, like, for example, I travel a lot and I have the opportunity to meet people who I have would for whatever other reason never be able to meet if it wasn't for having social media. And these are just people just like me, you know, just people who I could become friends with, people who I can start to travel with, and who I really feel like I know as human beings, that I've met just because of the internet. And it's like that just happens over and over again now, and it's so cringe to me every single time. So that's a huge one. And I think that also just honestly, like when somebody, it's so silly, but it's like when somebody, I post a lot of videos of like little fuzzy ducklings because there used to be a lake near me where there was all these ducklings every morning in the spring. And still, it's been like a year since last time I posted them, and I still get people tagging me in these pictures of these ducklings. And it's like, that has nothing to do with my work. That has nothing to do with like any kind of impact that I've created, but it shows this like ripple effect of like almost like shared joy that is just so magical to me. And so it's those little moments where I think, wow, someone is thinking of me when they see this like absolutely like cute, happy, joy-giving thing. It just makes me feel so happy. So I'll leave it at that.
That's so precious. I'm obsessed with that. And Connor, I will let you bring us home.
I have to echo everything that Jess and Xanthe said. I mean, like you guys, again, you hit the nail on the head. I'll take a different approach. I think my I made it moment was when I allowed my audience to be there for me. When I became really vulnerable, I lost my grandmother, who's my best friend on the planet, you guys. And I had a really tough day and I was bawling my eyes out. I'm not the girl, you know, no shame to anybody who is, but I can't record myself crying. Did I cry right? Is it enough? I don't know. I don't know how we judge what's a good crying video. It's just not for me. And so I was recording myself and I was bawling my eyes out. And I was talking directly to my audience as though we were on FaceTime. And I was telling them, I don't know how I'm going to do this. How do I put one foot in front of the other, knowing she's not going to be here? My inbox was flooded with messages. And it made me say, oh my God, they care about me. They care about me. Oh, wow. Like, and so it made me realize all that I had imparted and, you know, all the seeds I had sown over the years, it was just reaping the harvest of that and just being vulnerable and then being there. And it was such just a full circle moment for me. So I would say that was my I made it. Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sorry for your loss. Well, thank you all of you for being so open and vulnerable, especially during that last one. That was a really good one, I feel like, to end the session off with. So I learned so much. I hope the audience learned so much. Thank you to everyone who attended. And of course, thank you to our incredible panelists today. There are 2 sessions left in business school. So on Thursday, we have Design 501, where you'll learn how to create scroll stopping, beautiful content. And next Monday, we are ending things off with LinkedIn 601, which is our LinkedIn growth lab, which I'm so excited about. We have some incredible, just like really cool LinkedIn marketers on that panel. If you've heard of Pretty Little Marketer, we have Sophie Miller. So that's going to be a really awesome one. So definitely sign up for those if you haven't already. And otherwise, the recording will be going out tomorrow in case you just want to watch it all over again. And again, please go check out all of our panelists, give them some love, show them some love on Instagram, show them a follow. And otherwise, we'll see you in class next time. Bye, everyone. Thank you for coming.